Hey guys, welcome back. In the previous tutorial, we went over different line weights and line styles that we'd set up. But what if you want to change a line style, or create a new line style? For that, you have line patterns. Here, we can create any type of dash, overhead line that you would like. From this menu, you can create a new one, and by setting different types of dashes and dots, and then setting a value for them, you can see the spacing that'll adjust. To really show this, I'm going to use a 1/16th, so I'll select it and then click Edit. So you can see there's a dash line at 1/16th of an inch, and then a space at 1/16th of an inch. If we look at the dash 1/8 inch though, you'll see that there's a dash at 1/8 of an inch, and then a space at 1/8 of an inch. So you can choose between dashes, dots, and spaces in order to create multiple different types of lines. So if you want a phantom line, or a line type that you're more used to from working in AutoCAD, line patterns is actually one of the beginning steps in creating those lines. Because you basically set a series of dots, dashes, or a combination of both dots and dashes, in order to create the different types of line styles that you want. So once you have your line styles, your line weights, and your line patterns set up, the next step is to actually go back and really use those line weights. These numbers that actually indicate what you're representing. So then, the next challenge is to go to your View tab, and from under Visibility Graphics Settings, select Object Styles. You'll also need to go through and modify these object styles. That includes your projection and cut lines, and you'll have to do that for each category. Now, I know that all this might look a little bit daunting, and if you're starting your firm from scratch, and you go through and change all of these and test them out by trial and error, that's one way that you can set it up. Many firms, though, may have you work on a project in Revit, and then modify these settings as you go. This might be a little bit easier, because once you finish the project, then you can use those values that you set as a template for future projects. Regardless of how you go about it though, note the plus sign next to all the categories, so you'll want to customize all of those subcategories. Note too the line patterns, which you can modify or create from scratch like we discussed. So really, you're going to be using model objects, annotation objects, analytical model objects, or imported objects. And you can change all of those by modifying the original object styles. Now again, your object styles, as opposed to your visibility graphic overrides, are your defaults. So you use the visibility graphic overrides to make spot changes to the default object styles. So it's more important to get your object styles set to your company's standards. So I'll close those out, but remember, just as a review, you go to the View tab, Visibility Graphics, and then select Object Styles. Another way to access object styles, though, is from the Manage tab. If you go there and then look in the ribbon under the Settings panel, you'll see an icon that says Object Styles. So it's just good to know multiple ways to access these menus, both through Visibility Graphics and the Manage tab. Another thing to consider is that each company likes to set up their own snaps, and while this may not necessarily be a task for the BIM manager, the user should also be aware that they can enable certain snaps. Whether that be endpoints, midpoints, nearest, angular snaps, length dimensions specifying what increments you want, and also that you can turn snaps off. Now I find that I usually don't have to turn it off, but each user may have different needs, and again, it's always good to know the functionality. So just remember that you can also find snaps under the Manage tab right next to Object Styles. Alright, I'll see you in the next lesson.